I'm going to take on a topic that is often of high interest to a lot of people when they approach the Book of Mormon, and with the passage of time, for some reason, increasingly higher interest. This idea of where did the Book of Mormon take place? Keep in mind, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of models, external models about where the Book of Mormon took place, and theories. There are lots of models here in the Americas. Obviously, you've got the Peruvian and the Bolivian and the Chilean. You've got the Panama, the Nicaragua, the Honduras, the Costa Rica. You've got 8 in Mesoamerica, at least. You've got Baja. You've got the 2-continent model. You've got a couple of variations in the heartland of America. We've even got models over in Malaysia. We've got the Sri Lankan model, and I think the newest model on the scene is the African model. Some of you maybe heard of that. You can actually buy the book on Amazon. Really quickly, just a couple of numbers here. You have, as was introduced in one of the opening sessions this morning, 268,000 words in the Book of Mormon. Now listen carefully. Out of 268,000 words in the Book of Mormon, we have approximately, this number's, fudgeable depending on what you determine as a reference or not. You have 550 references to geography in the book. 550 references out of 268,000 words. Let me put that in perspective. That's just over 0.2% of the book is focused on geography. Just over 0.2%, not even at a percent of the book. And yet, many of the questions that arise, way more than 0.2% of our questions about the book have to do with geography. Now, the problem with embarking on any discussion about geography is you've got various models, and any model you put up, you're going to make 95% of the rest of the audience upset for one reason or another. They're going to disagree with you, and your premises are going to be different than their premises, and consequently your conclusions are going to be different than theirs. So what we've done with Taylor and I at BYU with the Virtual Scriptures group is we've tried to stay true to the church's position of neutrality as far as the geography is concerned. So we have been over and over and over again building on the backs of giants in this field who have gone before. John Sorensen and many others, the Allens, and many, many years of research, and Jack Welch included, and Kirk Nuggerby. And what we've done is we've tried to create an internal model that would be beautiful for students of the rising generation. This is not appealing to, here's the point. It doesn't matter which geographical model in the external world you want to use. The fact is, based on what our first-person accounts of the translation process say, they are telling us Joseph never used any resource material. No maps, no charts, no notes, no books, no resources off to the side. He is simply reading off of this, off of the stones, these words, phrase by phrase by phrase, as we've already talked about. Here's the remarkable thing. You have 550 references to geography spread out over, mostly starting in the book of Mosiah through the end of the book, because Nephi only gives us major geographical markers in the old world, not the new. And you've got all these references, and as you would expect, where would Mormon, the chief abridger, be the most accurate or the most descriptive in his geographical references? Well, it's going to be in the land of Zarahemla, where he's spending most of his time, most of his life, as the chief captain of those Nephite armies starting in his 16th year or at age 15. And he knows this land very well. He knows the land of Nephi far less. Consequently, much of what we have in the land of Nephi is going to be more guesswork and piecing together from this story and that story. Well, it says they did this, and so more likely they're probably going to be on this west side and maybe more to the north. You get that idea. What I wanted to do for this is to show you that when you go through a Book of Mormon geography experiment like this with an internal map, that can be, we fully intend for people not to like this because this doesn't fit any external model. We get that. We're fully aware of that. What the intent is for you to be able to go through the Book of Mormon regardless of what model you like or prefer, and squeeze, compress, twist, turn, stretch, do whatever you need to fit this into whatever model you prefer. But the reality is there are certain things the book says about its own geography that have to be in place, and some of them are pretty amazing. How Joseph, our frontier farm boy who grew up and at age 23 he's doing this work without any notes of any kind or any references, and spread it over all these months of translation, and he's keeping things just incredibly consistent, and it fits beautifully with this story. Now, let me just take you through a couple of stories. We'll do the weatherman here. We've got a high-pressure system moving in from the east. What we're going to show is where geography doesn't get in the way, but where it can actually enhance our understanding and unlock principles. Now, brothers and sisters, if geography were not at all important, I don't think Mormon or Moroni or Nephi would have included anything of the geography. But when they do include it, I'm forced to conclude to say, there's probably a reason they chose to tell me this or give me this geographic detail here to whatever detail level they give it. So I'm going to take Nephi seriously when he says, and I did liken all scriptures unto us, that it might be for our profit and learning. And I'm going to do that with this 0.2% of the Book of Mormon that refers to geography, and see if there are lessons we can learn. I totally understand that this is not going to be, in this aspect, it's not going to be scholarly or academic in nature. It's very, very application-based. But brothers and sisters, I find that the Holy Ghost, for me personally, doesn't usually bear testimony quite as strongly of questions of curiosity or details of geography as much as eternal truths that help me understand principles of the plan of salvation better and understand the Savior at a deeper level and feel like I want to be more like Him. Let me show you what I mean. When you look at the very existence of the Nephites and the Lamanites in the land southward, it's divided very clearly in the text that Zarahemla is north, Nephi is south, and yet every single time you go from Nephi to Zarahemla, you're going to go down, and every single time, without exception, perfect consistency, from start to finish, if you're going from Zarahemla to Nephi, you're going up, going totally contrary to what Joseph should have written, being north, up, south, down, even in the 19th century. But no, the Nephites and the Lamanites are not basing their geography off of 21st or 19th century directionality. So here you have them, boots on the ground, no satellite imagery, no Google Earth to rely upon. They're just based on what they can see. And so as you get into the Book of Mormon chapters regarding war, for instance, you can see some incredible lessons for life if you back out and let the geography teach a few lessons at an application level. For instance, what if you consider for a moment, just open up the possibility that the land of Zarahemla, where the Nephites lives, could represent us, our existence on this earth, and our efforts to try to live the gospel, and the Lamanites being that opposition that keeps coming to try to destroy us, try to enslave us, try to get us to fall to their subjection, take over our agency, being kind of in that part of the book. It's going to switch in the Book of Helaman, but in this part of the book, this element of opposition in our life. Well, if that's the case, then what you have in Alma chapter 43 through 51 is Captain Moroni showing you all of these principles of what a Latter-day Saint could do to try to resist temptation and sin, and to try to repel it and keep it out. And so every effort that these Lamanites bring into taking over the Nephites, Captain Moroni repels them. Even though they're outnumbered, he repels them. In the first instance, it's over here when Zarahemnah comes first into Antionum, and you get that first battle set up, and he sees Captain Moroni's soldiers in the land of Nephihah, and they're dressed in full armor, and the Lamanites are looking down their ranks, looking at each other in their government-issued loincloth, saying, this is not going well for us, even though we outnumber them. And so they flee back into the wilderness, it says, this narrow strip of wilderness that goes from the sea west to the sea east. Whether the wilderness is a mountain or a desert or just uninhabited land, it could be swamp, we don't know. There are lots of ways to interpret this. And anytime you make a map, you're going to make assumptions. You're probably going to be wrong, at least half the time or more. So Zarahemnah comes down through the wilderness and then up into Manti, while Captain Moroni comes the other direction, which seems to be a little faster, and you get this battle, and they repel them, sending Zarahemnah home. The next battle, while Zarahemnah is leaving, Captain Moroni shows you a principle that just because you overcame the devil once doesn't mean the devil's going to go home and never come again. Captain Moroni knows that the Lamanites are coming back. So he instantly starts preparing his cities. And it's interesting to me that he didn't leave out the cities way up north. He prepared them too, with mounds of dirt. He didn't get cocky or overconfident and think, well, I'm just going to protect my southern front. He seems to have thought in advance of all the places. Now you have 4 entry points that are listed throughout the story of the Book of Mormon between the Lamanites and the Nephites. The first one is over there on the right, Antionum. The second one is Manti here in the middle. The third one is Antipara. And the fourth one that gets used is here, way up north, Ammonihah. Now watch. When Amalickiah takes over, he thinks, hey, tell you what, let's send our soldiers up to Ammonihah, because the last time the Lamanites sent soldiers up to Ammonihah, they wiped it out in one day. It was the greatest victory in the history of the Lamanites. One day, entire city destroyed after the mission of Alma and Amulek there. So Amalickiah is saying, hey, that worked. So it didn't work so well for Zarahemnah to go to Antionum, and it didn't work so well for him to go into Manti. Let's catch him off guard and go clear up to Ammonihah. So the soldiers go up north, and as they're coming out of the wilderness, they realize, oh no, what are these fortresses? Because they showed up in thick armor and thick clothing with their big numbers, thinking, now we've got them. Brothers and sisters, you'll notice in the book that the real enemy isn't really the Lamanites most of the time. The real enemy turns out to be Nephites. The real battle we're fighting isn't so much an external one as it is an internal one. Captain Moroni keeps staying in front of the Lamanites and in repelling them, and everything's fine. This is the worst battle in the history of the Book of Mormon for the Lamanites. It's over 1,000 to 0, the casualty rate. And they send those Lamanites home just decimated after they attacked Noah when they saw that Ammonihah was fortified. So they come home, and then Amalickiah says, okay, I am so furious at you. You didn't bring the Nephites into bondage. I'm going to go at the head of the armies this time. And now Amalickiah comes in chapter 51, and he enters at Antionum in league, obviously, with some king men who have started to create this problem internally with the Nephites. Because if it isn't for the internal struggles, Captain Moroni is going to keep increasing the fortifications and be totally fine. But because we brought all of our forces to this civil war, now Amalickiah picks up the fight in chapter 51. Now, watch the map as I read chapter 51, verse 26. This is Amalickiah. And thus he went on taking possession of many cities. The city of Nephihah, the city of Lehi, the city of Morianton, the city of Omner, the city of Gid, the city of Mulek. Again, brothers and sisters, it doesn't matter to me where you want to put the Book of Mormon in the external map, but wherever your model is, Mormon seems to be giving us these cities in order from south to north, and he says, and they were, all of which were on the east borders by the seashore. So your cities in your external model need to line up on that eastern seashore, somewhere near the seashore on that eastern front. They get up to Mulek, and they are trying everything they can to get to Bountiful, because that's where you can now take control of the north country. Amalickiah knows that, Moroni knows that. So Moroni sends Teancum to head him off, and that's where Teancum stops him between Mulek and Bountiful, and then it tells you that Amalickiah's men camp on the seashore, on the beach that night, and Teancum's men camp in the borders of the land Bountiful. And it's that night that Teancum doesn't sleep. It's New Year's Eve, and he goes down, and we have a New Year's celebration. Amalickiah is asleep, and he kills Amalickiah in his tent on the seashore. Now, watch what happens. You have all of these cities that are lost. You just lost them in chapter 51. So 43 through 51 is a great geographical lesson for us of how to overcome sin and how to prevent sin from becoming a part of us with these preparations. But now, sin got in, and it didn't just get in. They have now taken over fortified cities. That which used to be our strength is now being used against us. So chapters 51 through 63 become an incredible Latter-day handbook for people to figure out, how do I now get rid of sin that has taken root inside of me, even if it's a deep addiction, deep in this land. And we didn't just lose the eastern seafront, we lost the southern. We've lost Mantis, Yezreel, Cumeni, Antipara. We've lost almost everything, and it would be easy to just give up and say, we're done. But what these chapters show us is Captain Moroni doesn't lose it. He says, okay, we've lost all of this, and he then begins for the rest of the story, taking over one city at a time, focusing on one thing at a time. And we love this story of the stripling warriors, just really quickly. I've got 2 minutes. Ready? The stripling warriors have been relocated from Jershon over to Melech. These pacifist people who aren't going to fight, they've been relocated to Melech for this war, and now they're right near Judea, near Minon here, south of Zarahemla. That's where they start. And they come and they march past Antipara, and Antipas' army comes after, and so the army leaves Antipara. This Lamanite strong army follows them on the map. They turn northward, and they're going to march northward for 2.5 days, basically, and they're running. And it doesn't tell you this, but if they're running that full distance, they're almost to Ammonihah, when they then have this battle. And I wish I had 30 more minutes and we'd take you through all of these different stories, but the time is up. Brothers and sisters, let me just say this. My testimony is not based on geography or culture, politics, or literary techniques in the book. But geography is one more lens through which I can look at this book and say, behold the work of God, the hand of God in our day. Brothers and sisters, this book is true. I know it with all my heart, and I pray that as you study it, you don't get so excited about the geography that we forget the message, which is Jesus is the Christ who came to save us from our sins. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.